Now, look, we've been talking this morning, haven't we, about the issue of government handouts and how in an election year it seems everyone's getting money. And one group that have been, well, not targeted, been the subject of government largesse and announcement in the past week, superannuitants, our older or senior citizens. I'm going to be one of them soon. I suppose I'm one of them now. And the government's announcement Monday of cost of living package for Kiwi pensioners, they can expect to boost their fortnightly superannuation payments. For couples over 65, their fortnightly payments will increase by $102.84. And the singles, they get $66.86 per payment. Well, to find out if this is enough, if it will make a difference or it's unnecessary, we're joined by David Marshall. He is the chair of the National Advisory Group for Superannuation and Taxation, also known, more commonly known as Grey Power. Thank you for joining us, David. How are you?
Good, thanks very much, Sean.
All right. Was this something that superannuitants have been screaming for or not?
I think many are definitely struggling, particularly those who don't have great financial reserves. But this is just the announcement of the normal mechanism that takes place where New Zealand Super is adjusted by the rate of inflation or the average wage, whichever one is higher for that calculation. So it's just a normal
hang on, David. I thought it was wonderful, Chris Hipkins saying, I've got extra money for you because I care about you. And it's a bread and butter issue. You're just saying this would have happened anyway?
Well, sometimes governments can decide not to apply it, but that is what is under the legislation at the moment. And we welcome that it has been.
But it's not a you're telling me it's not a special thing at all?
It's reviewed every year to commence on the 1st of April.
I feel like I've been fibbed to.
We're very pleased that the government at least has kept to what the legislation says should happen, and that's really appreciated. I think where we see our people struggling are those who really don't have reserves, and for them, we're waiting to see whether or not there's going to be any changes for supplementary payments, such as the accommodation supplements and winter energy. Because unless those are adjusted, those people are the ones who are really, really struggling. Many of them, particularly if they're renting, are spending 40, 50, 60% of their New Zealand Super on rent.
Yeah. This is interesting. And there is a cost of living, well, people say crisis. There's a cost of living issue in the country at the moment.
Yeah.
And give me an idea, if we look at the financial profile in terms of outgoings for the average retired New Zealander plus 65, in terms of proportion of their income, their cash flow of a week, I imagine quite a lot of that is simply being spent on going to the supermarket and feeding yourself. They're not spending a lot on mortgage or everything. The actual cost of living, in a real sense, is probably a huge proportion of the money they spend. So they're going to get hit hard.
Yes, they are. But as I say, those who rent are hit the hardest.
Yeah.
And also women who haven't got savings and perhaps their partner's died or there's been a divorce. Those people are in the more precarious situation. And we're now seeing far more older people who normally don't ask for help going to food banks. So
wow.
That is a real sign. Yeah.
All right. So, David, what the government has given and, I don't know, dressed up in a little box and put a bow round is what they were going to have to do anyway under the legislation. So there's no great largesse here. Is it enough to make a difference to get people through, or for superannuitants who, you know, are doing it tough, do we need to do more for them, I guess is my question.
Yeah, well, I mean, with food costs 17% higher than 12 months ago, of course, 7% doesn't help much with that, but other things may not have increased that much. So for those who really don't have much in the way of reserves, it'll be helpful, but they'll still be struggling, yes. So that's why we would be keen to see the targeted supplements looked at for those who really are the most vulnerable.
Yeah. On a broader issue, could I ask you, David, and I think back 4 or 5 years ago, Grey Power, the elder New Zealander or the senior citizen lobby seems strong in New Zealand. It feels to me like you've been quiet of late. Is that a feeling you get, and why might that be?
I suppose there's so many people out there making statements and things, but we quietly work away advocating for issues that we believe need to be addressed. And one of them that we are really keen on that affects this group is the accommodation supplement, where those who live like in a pensioner village run by a council are only allowed 8,200 in reserves to get any accommodation supplement. Once it's over that, they get nothing.
Wow.
Yet someone in social housing is allowed 44,000. And we feel that
is not equitable.
Right. It's sort of silo legislation, and we'd like to see that addressed, and that it would help a lot because, as you know, older people are very determined to try and manage without any help from anyone.
Yeah, there's a pride there.
But when it gets desperate, some of these things like that are pretty essential.
Have either of the major parties on that issue that you don't get accommodation supplement? Well, there's a clear inequity there that if you're a normal person, it's $44,000 in assets or reserves, and you can still get an accommodation supplement. If you're an older person over 65, it's only $8,500. That seems wrong. Have either of the major political parties promised to change that, or said they'd look at it?
Well, it's obviously one of the issues that we're lobbying on, and we were delighted to see that in the review of retirement income policies from the Retirement Commission, their report at the end of last year is strongly recommending that inequity be
So I'm just asking if you had any indication from major political parties that they'll listen to that report.
They've listened, and we've been told to wait for the budget, and if there's anything. But I would imagine that with all of the other things at the moment, it could be one of the ones that slips down the cracks, but we're hoping it isn't. Yeah.
David, and look, thank you for putting me straight. As I said, I thought that Chris Hipkins was just like the Tooth Fairy, and he's not. It's just what they had to do anyway. I thank you so much for joining us.
I'm being grumpy.
I thank you very much indeed for talking to us this morning. Cheers. Thanks. David Marshall, he's the chair of the National Advisory Group for Superannuation and Taxation, or otherwise known as Grey Power. And plenty of you, I imagine, belong to Grey Power, and I imagine I will one day as well. So Monday's great. Here's something for the pensioners. It was all smoke and mirrors. It was what they were going to have to give them anyway. It wasn't special. Wasn't a special present for the Wrinklies, was it? You know, as I get older, I'm less inclined to say pejorative things about old people because I suddenly realise I am one. I'm going to be 59, almost 60 this year. Good Lord. Okay, well, I got to say that didn't quite go the way I thought because it's not that generous at all. So was Chippy being a bit slippy there? Or is he just, as I said, flippy? I like flippy rather than Chippy. The National Party were into it. They would be already had this name out there. I want to copyright it. Flippy or Flipkins, copyright, Sean Plunket. Actually, I'll be honest, I heard it from a mate who sent me a text yesterday from Tairua, where Jacinda Ardern, the former Prime Minister, still guarded by 3 or 4 diplomatic protection squad people, has her holiday home. Oh, gosh, have I breached her security now? I do not know. 60 years are not old, you Wally. Laugh out loud, says Fee. I know, but it's old to me. It's as old as I've ever been, Fee. 59. Sean, 60 is the new 50. I don't even want to be 50. I want to be perpetually... I don't want to be 22 like Ben because you're just an idiot then. I'd like to be perpetually 32 before the middle-age spread set in. 32 was a pretty good age. 40 was actually pretty good. 40's not bad. You're coming right at 40. It's like a dog. You've kind of got enough miles under the belt to know what the hell you're doing. Someone says Flippy Slippy Chippy. Could that be his nickname? Chip Munkins. That doesn't work, Paul. Chippy to Flippy. Do you see what I did there? Sean, I have zero sympathy for people 70 plus. They lived in the most prosperous times ever. How are they so skint? Oh, Susan. That's bloody ageist of you, Susan. Did they have a choice of what time they were born at? Sean, I've decided to vote Labor now. Everything's changed. Hipkins is obviously telling the truth and our lives will be much better now. Hell, probably be changing the gun laws soon to allow semi-autos and large magazine pistols too. Wonderful, says Alan. Alan, I think you are saying that with irony dripping from your fingers as you type in that text. Flippy, Slippy, Chippy. Yeah, that would be a name. I cannot believe 0 people for people 70 plus. What you mean? He looks like a bloody chipmunk and stashes all the goodies away for the winter of discontent. No, he's giving them all out now, Paul. I don't think it's that great. I don't think your one is that great, to be honest.